I never thought the hands that pushed me toward death would be the hands I once held while teaching a child how to walk. On our 50th wedding anniversary, my son took me and my husband to a mountain trail, smiling, laughing, pretending to celebrate us. Minutes later, my husband was dying beside me, and my son stood above the cliff believing we were already dead. How does a mother survive the moment she realizes her own child wants her gone? Before we begin, please write the name of your city in the comments and subscribe to this channel. May those who subscribe be given good luck, good health, and may everything in your life become easy, amen. My name is Irene Calhoun. I am 67 years old, and I learned too late that age does not protect a mother from heartbreak. That morning in Red Hollow, West Virginia, the air smelled like damp soil and pine. The sun was still low, and the cold reached through my sweater. I stood in my kitchen with my hands on the counter, listening to the slow drip of the faucet and the soft hum of the refrigerator. The house was quiet except for Leonard's footsteps in the hallway. Leonard walked in with his jacket already on. He was 70, tall even with a slight curve in his back, and he carried the tired calm of a man who had worked hard all his life. He looked at me the way he always did, like he was checking that I was still here and still safe. "You ready, Ree?" he asked. I nodded and forced a smile. I had been ready for this anniversary for weeks. 50 years with Leonard. 50 years of bills, prayers, arguments, laughter, and the kind of love that comes from staying when life tries to pull you apart. But there was a tight feeling in my chest that I could not explain. Our son Marcus had insisted on taking us out for a special day. A mountain walk, he said. Family moment. Something we would remember. I wanted to believe him. A mother always wants to believe. I wiped my hands on a dish towel and looked around the kitchen. The cabinets had worn edges. The curtains were faded from years of sunlight. This house had held all our seasons. It had held Marcus when he was a boy, running barefoot down the hallway, laughing so loudly the neighbors could hear. Now Marcus was 38. A man with a confident voice, a clean haircut, and a smile that could convince people he meant well even when he did not. When we stepped outside, the cold hit my face. The front yard grass was wet, and the road was still empty. Leonard locked the door, then reached for my hand. His palm was warm and rough. Marcus's car pulled up with music playing low. He stepped out wearing hiking shoes and a bright jacket that looked too new. His wife Darlene followed him, adjusting her scarf. Darlene was 35, thin, with eyes that moved too quickly. She always looked like she was listening for trouble. "Mom," Marcus said, opening his arms like he was greeting a crowd. "Happy anniversary. You look good." I hugged him. His jacket smelled like cologne and car leather. He patted my back, quick and light, like a gesture he had practiced. Leonard shook Marcus's hand. "Morning," Leonard said. His voice was steady, but his eyes stayed on Marcus a moment longer than usual. Darlene gave me a careful smile. "Happy anniversary, Miss Irene." I touched her arm. "Thank you, baby." Marcus loaded us into the car. I sat in the back with Leonard, watching the houses pass by. Red Hollow was small. People knew your business before you said a word. The roads were narrow, the trees thick, and the town felt like it was held in place by habit. Marcus drove like he was in a hurry. His fingers tapped the steering wheel. Darlene sat stiff in the passenger seat, her hands clasped in her lap. She stared out the window, blinking fast. "You okay, Darlene?" I asked. She turned and smiled too hard. "Yes, Miss Irene. Just tired." Marcus laughed. "She always gets nervous on roads like this." Leonard leaned closer to me. "He's driving too fast," he murmured. I squeezed Leonard's hand. "He'll slow down." We reached the trail after an hour. The parking lot had a few trucks, and the wind moved through the trees with a steady sound like water rushing. The trail sign stood near the entrance, scratched and faded. Marcus took a deep breath like he was proud of the place. "This is the spot," he said. "Best view in the whole county." Leonard looked up at the slope. "It's steep. That's why it's worth it," Marcus said, smiling. We started walking. The ground was uneven, packed dirt with scattered rocks and wet leaves. The air smelled sharp. My knees complained, but I kept going because I did not want to seem weak in front of my son. Marcus walked ahead, leading like a guide. Darlene stayed close to him, but her gaze kept shifting behind us, then back to Marcus. Leonard walked beside me, steady, matching my pace. I listened to our footsteps and the distant calls of birds. My breath came out in small clouds. I could feel sweat building at my neck under my scarf. Marcus turned around, walking backward for a few steps. "Mom, you doing okay?" he asked. "I'm fine," I said. He nodded and looked at Leonard. "Dad, you should be proud. 50 years is no joke." Leonard answered carefully. "It takes work." Marcus chuckled. "Everything takes work with you, Dad." I watched Marcus's face as he said it. The smile stayed, but his eyes were hard for a second. Then he looked away. We kept climbing. The trail narrowed in places, and the drop beside it grew sharper. Trees thinned, and the sound of wind became louder. I could feel my heart beating in my ears. At one bend, Darlene stopped. She pressed her fingers to her temple and took a shaky breath. "You need a break?" I asked. Marcus's voice tightened. "We're almost there. Come on." Darlene nodded quickly and moved again. She did not look at me. She did not look at Leonard. She only looked at Marcus. Leonard leaned toward me again. "Something's off," he said softly. I swallowed. "It's just nerves. Darlene gets nervous." Leonard did not answer. His eyes stayed on Marcus's back. After another stretch, we reached a wide open section near the edge. The view was clear. A line of hills rolled into the distance. The sky was pale and clean. The wind hit my face so hard my eyes watered. Marcus stepped closer to the edge like he owned it. "Look at that," he said. "Beautiful, right?" I moved carefully, keeping my feet planted. Leonard stood behind me, his hand near my elbow as if ready to catch me. Darlene stayed a few steps back. Her lips were pressed together. Her cheeks looked pale. Marcus turned to us with his smile again. "Come a little closer, Mom. I want a picture with you and Dad. Right here. Perfect background." I hesitated. The edge was too close. The ground looked slick. Leonard shook his head slightly. "We can take it farther back." Marcus's smile twitched. "Dad, stop being dramatic. Just one step." I heard the wind. I heard my own breathing. I took a small step forward, then another because I wanted to keep the peace. Because I wanted my son to be happy. Because mothers do that, even when something inside them says to stop. Leonard stepped with me, cautious. Marcus moved behind Leonard. I felt his presence close, too close. I turned my head slightly, and I saw Marcus's jaw tighten. His eyes were not smiling anymore. Then his hands shoved Leonard hard in the back. Leonard's body lurched forward toward the open drop. The moment stretched longer than it should have. I saw Leonard's arms flail once, his mouth opening without a sound. His eyes met mine, wide and sharp, filled with shock but not fear. Then his feet lost the ground. I screamed his name. Marcus's hands were still out, fingers spread, like he had just pushed a door instead of his father. I felt a second shove, hard and sudden, right between my shoulders. The sky spun. The world tipped sideways. My scream tore out of my throat as the ground disappeared beneath me. The fall was not fast. It was violent and slow at the same time. My body struck rock, then dirt, then something sharp that tore into my side. My head hit hard, and light exploded behind my eyes. Pain ripped through me, loud and total, leaving no space for thought. Then everything went dark. I woke to cold. The first thing I felt was the ache. It was everywhere. My ribs burned when I tried to breathe. My mouth tasted like blood and soil. I could hear the wind far above, like it belonged to another world. I lay still, afraid that moving would finish what the fall had started. "Leonard," I whispered, but my voice came out thin and broken. I turned my head slowly. He was a few feet away, twisted on his side. His jacket was torn. Blood soaked into the dirt beneath him. I tried to crawl to him. My arms shook and gave out. A sharp pain shot through my leg, and I cried out before I could stop myself. Leonard's eyes opened. He looked at me, and for a moment relief crossed his face. Then his expression changed. His gaze shifted upward, toward the edge of the cliff we had fallen from. I followed his eyes. Above us, framed by sky and branches, were two figures. Marcus and Darlene. They stood close together, peering down. Marcus's face was pale, his mouth open, his chest rising fast. Darlene had both hands over her mouth. Her shoulders trembled. I tried to move again. Leonard lifted his hand just slightly. "Don't," he whispered. Froze. "I can hear them," he said, each word an effort. His voice was rough, wet with pain. "Don't move. Pretend to be dead." Tears streamed down my face, mixing with dirt. I shook my head once, barely. "They'll see," I whispered. Leonard's fingers tightened weakly around mine. "Trust me." Above us, Marcus's voice floated down, carried by the wind. "Oh my God," he said. "Oh my God." Darlene sobbed. "Marcus, what did you do?" There was a pause. My heart pounded so loud I was sure they could hear it. Marcus spoke again, lower this time. "They fell. That's it. They fell." "That wasn't a fall," Darlene said, her voice cracking. "You pushed them." Another pause. Then Marcus said something that turned my blood to ice. "No one will know." I shut my eyes and forced my body to go still. Every breath hurt. Every instinct screamed to move, to scream, to call for help. I pressed my lips together until they shook. Leonard's hand stayed in mine. His breathing was shallow, uneven. "I'm sorry," Darlene whispered above us. "I didn't think you would do it." Marcus answered fast. "You said we had no choice." "I said we should talk to them," she cried. "I said we should wait." Marcus snapped back. "It's done. They're gone." His footsteps moved closer to the edge. Small rocks tumbled down, bouncing past my arm. One struck my shoulder, sending a jolt of pain through me. I did not react. Marcus leaned forward. I could feel his eyes on us. I could imagine his face searching for movement. Seconds passed. Each one felt like a lifetime. "I don't see them moving," Marcus said. Darlene sobbed louder. "Marcus, please. We can't stay here," he said. "Someone could come." There was a long silence, then the sound of footsteps moving away. I waited. I counted my breaths. I did not open my eyes until the sounds above faded completely. When I finally looked at Leonard, his face was gray. His eyes fluttered. "Leonard," I whispered, panic rising. "Stay with me." He looked at me with a small, tired smile. "I'm here." I squeezed his hand. "Help is coming. We'll get help." He shook his head just a little. "Listen to me." I leaned closer, ignoring the pain screaming through my body. "You have to live," he said. "You have to tell the truth." Tears fell onto his face. "We raised him," I said. "We raised him better than this." Leonard's grip weakened. Sometimes love isn't enough. His breathing slowed. Each breath took longer to come than the last. "Leonard," I said again, louder now. "Please." His eyes stayed on mine. Then they softened, and his chest stilled. I screamed. The sound ripped out of me, raw and animal. It echoed against the rocks and trees, filling the space where his voice had been. I lay beside my husband's body as the cold settled deeper into my bones, and I realized something terrible and clear. My son had left us to die. I do not know how long I lay there after Leonard stopped breathing. Time lost its shape. The sky above shifted from pale blue to gray, then darker, and the cold crept deeper into my bones. My body hurt so badly that pain became dull, like a heavy blanket pressing me into the ground. Leonard's hand slipped from mine when my fingers finally went numb. I wanted to hold on, but my strength was fading. I turned my face toward him and pressed my cheek against the dirt, breathing in the smell of soil and blood. "I'm still here," I whispered, even though he could not hear me anymore. The wind moved through the trees above, carrying distant sounds of birds and branches. Life was continuing somewhere else, untouched by what had happened to us. I knew I could not stay there. Leonard had told me to live. That thought burned in my chest stronger than the pain. I rolled onto my side, screaming as my ribs shifted. My leg refused to move. When I tried to push myself up, my arms collapsed under me. I rested my forehead on the ground and breathed through clenched teeth until the dizziness passed. I dragged myself forward inch by inch, using my elbows and my good leg. Rocks cut into my palms. Leaves stuck to my bloodied clothes. Every movement felt like tearing something inside me. I stopped often, gasping, waiting for the world to stop spinning. Above me, the cliff rose steep and impossible. I did not need to climb it. I just needed to get out of sight. I needed to get help. My throat was dry, my voice barely there, but I tried to call out anyway. The sound came out weak and broken, swallowed by the forest. After what felt like hours, I reached a patch of thicker trees. The ground was softer there, covered with moss and fallen needles. I collapsed against a tree trunk and closed my eyes. I thought about Marcus as a boy, sitting at the kitchen table with crumbs on his face, asking for more cornbread. I thought about the way he used to hold my hand when he crossed the street, squeezing too tight like he was afraid I would disappear. I wondered where that boy had gone. The sound of voices pulled me back. I opened my eyes and listened. 2 men were talking somewhere nearby. Their laughter cut through the quiet like a blade. I forced my mouth open and tried again. "Help," I whispered. The word barely made it past my lips. I gathered what little strength I had left and shouted. The sound tore my throat, but it was louder this time. The voices stopped. Footsteps approached, cautious and slow. A man appeared between the trees. He wore a worn jacket and carried a rifle slung over his shoulder. His eyes widened when he saw me. "Oh Lord," he said. "Ma'am." He rushed forward, kneeling beside me. "Don't move. I got you." I wanted to tell him about Leonard, about Marcus, about everything. But the darkness rushed back in, fast and heavy. The next thing I knew, bright lights burned my eyes. The air smelled sharp and clean. A woman's voice told me to stay awake. Hands touched my arms, my face, my hair. "Severe trauma," someone said. "Possible fractures." I drifted in and out, catching pieces of sound like broken glass. Found her near the ravine. Any sign of the husband? They're searching. When I woke again, the room was quiet. Machines beeped softly around me. My body felt wrapped in pain and cotton. A nurse noticed my eyes open and smiled gently. "You're safe," she said. "You're in the hospital." I swallowed hard. "My husband," I croaked. Her smile faded. She looked down for a moment before meeting my eyes again. "They found him," she said softly. I turned my face away, tears soaking into the pillow. Later the sheriff came. His name was Wyatt Boone. He was tall, with tired eyes and a careful voice. He sat beside my bed with his hat in his hands. "Mrs. Calhoun," he said, "your son reported you and your husband missing earlier today. He said you went hiking and never came back." My heart pounded. I stared at the ceiling. My mind replayed Marcus's voice. "No one will know." "Do you remember what happened?" the sheriff asked. Closed my eyes. I saw Leonard falling. Felt the shove. "Yes," I said. I turned my head slowly and looked at him. "My son pushed us." The sheriff did not react right away. He blinked once, then leaned back slightly. "That's a serious claim," he said. I met his gaze. "I know." Outside the room I heard voices. One of them was Marcus's. "I need to see my mother," he said. "Please." Fear crawled up my spine, cold and sharp. The door handle turned. The door opened slowly. I felt my whole body tense, every muscle pulling tight as if I could shrink into the bed and disappear. Marcus stepped inside. He looked like a grieving son. His eyes were red. His hair was slightly messy. He wore the same jacket from the trail, now clean, as if it had never brushed against dirt or blood. In his hands, he held a paper cup of coffee he did not drink. "Mom," he said softly. The sound of his voice hit me harder than the fall. It was the same voice that had asked me for bedtime stories. The same voice that had called me when he got his first job. Hearing it now made my stomach twist. Sheriff Boone stood up. "I'll give you a minute," he said, but his eyes stayed sharp. "I'll be right outside." When the door closed, the room felt smaller. Marcus stepped closer to my bed. He looked down at me, and his face shifted. The grief fell away, replaced by something tight and controlled. "You weren't supposed to survive," he said quietly. My breath caught. "Marcus," I whispered. He leaned closer. I checked, waited. "You didn't move." Tears filled my eyes, but I did not let them fall. "Your father died," I said. "Leonard is gone." His jaw clenched. "That wasn't the plan." The words crushed me. I turned my face away. "What plan?" I asked. Marcus straightened. "We were running out of time," he said. "Dad was going to expose everything." "Expose what?" I demanded. He exhaled sharply. "You wouldn't understand. I raised you," I said. "Try me." He looked toward the window, then back at me. "There's land up there," he said. "Mineral rights. Big money. Dad found out I sold access I didn't own. If it came out, I would lose everything." I stared at him. "So you killed him?" He shook his head. "I did what I had to do." A knock sounded at the door. Marcus stepped back, his face changing again. Darlene peeked inside. Her eyes landed on me, wide and wet. She gasped softly. "You're alive," she said. I watched her shoulders sag, like something heavy had dropped off her chest. Then she looked at Marcus, fear flickering across her face. Sheriff Boone re-entered. "Time's up." Marcus nodded and forced a shaky smile. He reached for my hand, pulled it away. "I love you, Mom," he said loudly. I did not answer. After they left, the sheriff sat down again. "Did he say anything unusual?" he asked. "Yes," I said. My voice was steady now. "Everything." The days that followed blurred together. Doctors fixed what they could. Broken ribs, fractured leg, bruises that turned my skin dark purple and yellow. News spread through Red Hollow fast. People came with flowers and casseroles. They cried for Leonard. They hugged Marcus in the hallway and told him how strong he was. I watched from my bed, silent. Darlene avoided me. When she did pass my room, she looked at the floor. One night she came alone. She stood in the doorway, twisting her hands. "I didn't mean for this," she whispered. "You stood there," I said. "You watched." Tears ran down her face. "I was scared." "So was I said. She nodded, defeated, and left without another word. The sheriff returned with paperwork and careful questions. I answered all of them. I told him everything. Still, doubt hung in the air like smoke. Marcus had no record, no witnesses, just my word against his. Then something changed. Sheriff Boone came back one morning with a folder under his arm. His face was serious, but there was something else there. "Resolve. We found financial records," he said. "And a witness." My heart jumped. "Darlene came in," he continued. "She told us what she saw." I closed my eyes and let out a breath I felt like I had been holding since the fall. "They're bringing Marcus in," the sheriff said. That afternoon, I watched from my hospital window as Marcus was led across the parking lot in handcuffs. He did not look at me, but I knew he felt me watching. That night, alone in my room, I spoke to Leonard's empty space beside me. "I'm still here," I said. Outside, the lights of Red Hollow flickered in the distance, and I understood something painful and clear. The hardest part was not surviving the fall. It was surviving the truth. When I was discharged from the hospital, Red Hollow felt different. The same roads curved through the hills. The same houses stood quiet and close together. But the way people looked at me had changed. Some stared too long. Some looked away too fast. Leonard's funeral was held 3 days after I came home. I walked into the church on a cane, my legs still stiff and aching. Every step reminded me of the fall. Every breath reminded me of the man I had lost. The church smelled of old wood and flowers. Leonard's casket rested at the front, polished and heavy. I stood beside it, my hand resting on the smooth surface, trying to understand how a whole life could be reduced to something so still. People lined up to hug me. They spoke softly. They told me Leonard was a good man. They told me I was strong. Marcus's seat was empty. That absence cut deeper than his presence ever could. After the service, Sheriff Boone approached me. His face was tired. "Marcus has been charged," he said quietly. "Attempted murder. Homicide." He nodded. My body felt numb. Relief and grief tangled together until I could not tell them apart. Darlene did not come to the funeral. People whispered about her instead. In Red Hollow, silence traveled faster than truth. When I returned home, the house greeted me with echoes. Leonard's boots still sat by the door. His jacket hung on the back of a chair. I touched everything slowly, like I was afraid it might disappear. That night I could not sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I felt the shove again. I heard the wind. I saw Marcus's face change. Near midnight, headlights swept across the living room walls. Froze. A knock came at the door. Low. Firm. I reached for the phone, my heart pounding, then stopped. Something told me this was coming. Open the door. Marcus stood on the porch. He was not supposed to be there. His face was thinner. His eyes were wild. The cuffs were gone. "Irene," he said, using my name for the first time in his life. Fear washed over me, cold and sharp. "You need to leave," I said. "They let me out on bail," he replied. "I just wanted to talk." I stepped back but did not invite him in. "There is nothing to talk about." He leaned closer. "You don't have to do this. You don't have to destroy your own son." My hand shook. "You did that yourself." His voice dropped. "If you testify, I lose everything." I looked at him, really looked. This was not the boy I had raised. This was a stranger wearing his face. "You lost your father," I said. "I lost my husband." He clenched his fists. "He was going to ruin us." "You pushed him," I said. "You pushed me." For a moment I thought he might grab me. Instead he laughed, low and bitter. "You think the town will believe you?" he asked. "I don't care," I answered. "I know the truth." His smile faded. He stepped back slowly. "This isn't over," he said. I watched him walk into the darkness, my body shaking long after he was gone. That night I slept with the lights on. The courthouse in Red Hollow was small, but on the first day of the trial, it felt crowded and heavy. Wooden benches creaked under the weight of bodies and tension. I sat in the front row, my hands folded in my lap, my back straight despite the pain that never fully left my ribs. Marcus sat at the defense table. He wore a clean suit and kept his head down. From a distance, he looked like a man burdened by grief. Only I knew how easily that look came to him. Darlene sat behind him, stiff and pale. She avoided my eyes. The prosecutor spoke calmly. He told the story the way it should be told. Family hike. A sudden betrayal. A fall that was not an accident. When it was my turn, I walked to the stand with careful steps. The room was silent. I felt every eye on me as I raised my right hand and swore to tell the truth. I told them about the anniversary, about the trail, about the way Marcus stood behind us. I described the shove. Marcus's lawyer tried to break me. He asked about my age, my injuries, my memory. "You were in pain," he said. "You were confused." "I was pushed," I replied. He leaned closer. "Is it possible you lost your balance and fell, pulling your husband with you?" "No," I said. "My son pushed us." Marcus stared at the table. Then Darlene testified. Her voice shook. She cried. She told the court she had begged Marcus to stop. She told them she saw his hands strike Leonard's back. She told them about the words he said after. No one will know. The courtroom was still when she finished. Marcus finally looked up. His eyes met mine. There was no apology there. Only anger. The defense rested. The judge set the date for closing arguments. The town buzzed with talk. People took sides. Some said blood was blood. Some said truth was truth. I returned home each night exhausted but steady. Leonard's voice lived in my head. You have to live. You have to tell the truth. On the morning of the verdict, I wore Leonard's jacket. It was too big, but it made me feel anchored. The jury filed in. I held my breath. Guilty, the foreman said. The word echoed through the room. Marcus stood suddenly. This isn't fair, he shouted. She's lying. The bailiff grabbed his arm. I did not look away. The judge called for order. Sentencing was scheduled for the following week. As Marcus was led away, he turned back once. I will never forgive you, he said. I watched him go, my heart breaking in a quiet, steady way. The day of sentencing arrived with gray skies and a cold wind that cut through my coat. I walked into the courthouse slowly, my cane tapping against the floor, each step echoing louder than it should have. Marcus was already there. He looked smaller somehow, like the weight of the verdict had pressed him down. He did not look at me this time. His lawyer whispered in his ear, but Marcus stared straight ahead, jaw tight. The judge spoke about the facts, about trust, about betrayal within a family. His voice was steady, almost gentle, which made the words heavier. Marcus Calhoun, the judge said, you are sentenced to 30 years in state prison. A sound escaped Marcus, something between a laugh and a cry. He grabbed the table, his shoulders shaking. Darlene covered her face and sobbed. I stayed still. My hands did not move. My face did not change. Inside me, something cracked open and settled at the same time. As they took Marcus away, he turned suddenly and shouted my name. Irene, he yelled. You chose this. I met his eyes. You did, I said quietly. The door closed behind him. Outside, reporters waited. Cameras flashed. I walked past them without stopping. I had said everything that needed to be said. That evening I sat alone in my living room. Leonard's chair was empty across from me. I reached out and touched the armrest, feeling the worn fabric under my fingers. I did what you asked, I whispered. The house was silent, but for the first time the silence did not feel like it was crushing me. After Marcus was sent away, Red Hollow slowed down around me. People stopped whispering when I entered a room. Some nodded with respect. Others kept their distance, unsure of what to say to a woman whose son had tried to kill her. I went back to my routines. Morning coffee at the small table by the window, sweeping the porch, watering Leonard's old tomato plants even though the season was almost over. My body healed slowly, but my heart moved even slower. Darlene came to see me one afternoon. She stood at the edge of the yard, holding a small bag like a shield. I'm leaving town, she said. He nodded. That might be best. She swallowed. I'm sorry, she said again, like the word could change shape if she repeated it enough. I looked at her face, at the fear and regret written there. You told the truth, I said. That matters. She cried then, openly, and when she left, the yard felt lighter. At night, I still dreamed of the fall. I still woke up reaching for Leonard. But the dreams came less often. When they did, I sat up and breathed until the room came back into focus. One morning I received a letter from prison. It was from Marcus. His handwriting was sharp, angry. He wrote about injustice, about betrayal, about how I had ruined his life. He did not mention Leonard. I folded the letter and placed it in a drawer without answering. That same week, Sheriff Boone stopped by. He brought a box of Leonard's belongings that had been held as evidence. His watch, his wallet, his old notebook. Just checking on you, the sheriff said. I'm still here, I replied. After he left, I opened the notebook. Inside were small notes, reminders, grocery list. One page caught my eye. It read, "Take care of Irene." I pressed the notebook to my chest and let myself cry, deep and hard, until my body shook and then finally eased. The pain was still there, but it no longer controlled every breath. I did not plan to visit Marcus. For weeks, I told myself that distance was necessary, that some doors once closed should stay that way. But one morning, I woke with a heaviness in my chest that would not leave me alone. I dressed carefully and drove the long road to the state prison. The building was gray and flat, surrounded by fences that hummed softly with electricity. It looked like a place designed to erase hope. Inside, the air smelled of disinfectant and metal. A guard led me to the visiting room. Plastic chairs were bolted to the floor. A thick glass wall divided the space. Marcus entered from the other side wearing a prison uniform. His shoulders were slumped. His hair was shorter. When he sat down, he looked older than his years. He picked up the phone. I did the same. "You came," he said, surprised. "Yes," I answered. For a moment, neither of us spoke. The silence stretched, heavy and uncomfortable. "Why?" he asked finally. "Why did you come?" I looked at his face, searching for the boy I once knew. I did not find him. "I came to see if you had anything to say," I replied. His mouth tightened. "You already took everything from me." I shook my head. "You took it from yourself." His eyes flashed. "He was going to expose me," he said. "You would have lost the house. Everything. You decided our lives were worth less than your reputation," I said. He looked away. "I loved you," I continued. "I loved you sincerely. That love was real." He swallowed hard, but his eyes stayed dry. "But love is not permission to destroy," I said. He laughed once, short and bitter. "So what now? You forgive me." Pause. "I forgive you," I said. "But forgiveness does not erase consequences." His expression changed then. Something broke through the anger. His shoulders shook just once. The guard signaled that time was up. Marcus stood. "I don't expect you to come back," he said. "I know," I replied. As he walked away, he did not turn around. I placed the phone back on the hook and stood slowly. My legs trembled, but my heart felt steady. Outside, the sky was wide and blue. I took a deep breath and got into my car. I drove home without looking back. I returned to Red Hollow as the sun was setting. The hills were dark against the orange sky, and the road curved gently, familiar and steady. When I pulled into my driveway, the porch light flicked on automatically, just like Leonard had said it years ago. I sat in the car for a long moment, listening to the engine tick as it cooled. My body was tired, but my mind was clear in a way it had not been in months. Inside the house, the air felt calm. I took off my coat and placed it on the chair where Leonard used to sit. I moved slowly through the rooms, touching the door frames, the table, the walls. This place had held love and loss, and it was still standing. That night, I dreamed of the trail again. But this time I was not falling. I was standing at the edge, looking down, feeling the wind without fear. Weeks passed. Life did not return to what it had been. It became something else. Quieter. Simpler. Stronger. I volunteered at the church kitchen twice a week. I spoke with Ustad when my heart felt heavy, and he reminded me that sincerity does not mean weakness. It means choosing truth even when it costs everything. One afternoon, a knock came at my door. It was a young woman from town. She looked nervous, twisting her hands. "I heard your story," she said. "I just wanted to say, you gave me courage." I thanked her and watched her walk away, realizing that my pain had become proof. Proof that survival was possible. Proof that silence was not the answer. That evening, I sat on the porch as the sky darkened. Crickets sang in the grass. A breeze moved through the trees. I spoke Leonard's name out loud, not in sorrow, but in strength. I was a mother. I was a wife. I was a woman who had been betrayed in the deepest way. And I was still here. Time did not heal everything. It taught me how to carry what could not be healed. A year passed. Then another. Red Hollow stayed small and familiar, but I changed within it. My hair turned more gray. My steps slowed. My voice grew firmer. I stopped waiting for letters from prison. They still came sometimes, but I no longer opened them right away. Some truths did not need repeating. Leonard's jacket remained on the chair. I never moved it. Not because I was trapped in the past, but because some love does not need closure to remain real. On Sundays, I sat in the back row of the church. I listened more than I spoke. When people came to me with their own stories of betrayal and loss, I did not give advice. I listened. That was enough. At night, when the house was quiet, I talked to Leonard the way I always had. About small things. About the garden. About the weather. About nothing at all. I no longer asked why. I had learned that sincerity does not always protect you. Love does not always save you. But truth, once spoken, has a way of keeping you standing. I was not defined by the fall. I was defined by what I did after. And I remained. This story teaches that sincere love, especially from a parent, does not always guarantee loyalty in return. Trust can be broken even within the closest family ties. And when that happens, silence only protects wrongdoing. The story reminds us that truth is often painful, but choosing truth is an act of courage that honors those who are harmed. Forgiveness does not mean denying justice, and love does not mean accepting betrayal. Standing for what is right even when it costs everything is a form of strength. This story is a work of fiction. All characters, events, and places are created to look real so the audience can reflect on the moral lessons within the story. It is not based on real people or actual events. Thank you for taking the time to listen to this story. If you found the story meaningful, please share your thoughts in the comments, like the story, and subscribe to support more storytelling like this.